Oi, Caveboy. Chapter 4. The Elders Speak. The next day didn't bring good news. Hammerhead had fallen into a dangerous fever since the snake attack. Most people said he had been bitten, but some blamed evil spirits, while others thought it might have something to do with being beaten by heavy clubs. Either way, the Urks went about their business with long faces and heavy hearts. Hammerhead had been chief for as long as anyone could remember, and a future without him was unthinkable. Even those who tried to think the unthinkable found it was like staring into a dark bottomless pit with their eyes closed. Gaga, the wise, took charge of nursing the chief back to health. Of all the tribal elders, he was the oldest and wisest. People claimed he was over 200 years old, although admittedly most of them had trouble counting up to 5. Gaga spent long hours in the chief's cave, mixing potions of ragweed, nettles, toad's blood and bat droppings. Yet Hammerhead only grew worse and sometimes threw up on the floor. Iggy, meanwhile, had spent a cold, miserable night in the snake pit. When it was light, his parents and Hubba managed to sneak along to see if he was all right. According to Hubba, most of the tribe blamed Iggy for the accident. The elders had called a meeting for that evening, and he would be summoned to appear. Later that night, the elders gathered in a circle around the standing stone. There were 6 of them in all, counting Borg and Gaga the wise. Iggy thought they looked like ancient sea turtles who had crawled out of their shells. He was glad to be free of the snake pit, but had no idea what lay ahead of him now. In the absence of Hammerhead, Borg had decided to take charge. He was a small, bold man with staring eyes and a temper as short as his legs. He waited impatiently for the other elders to stop whispering and shuffling their feet. "So, we all know why we has met?" The elders nodded their grey heads, smiling vaguely. "Is it the chief's birthday?" asked one. Borg raised his eyes heavenwards. Meetings of the elders always seemed to go like this. The longest had lasted 6 weeks. "Let's be clear," he said. "We has called this meeting to punish the traitor." Iggy looked around, wondering who the traitor could be. "Step forward, boy," ordered Borg. Iggy stepped into the circle, feeling dizzy and light-headed. He'd had nothing to eat since a handful of snails for breakfast. "There's been some mistake," he began. "Silence when you speak to the elders," roared Borg. "Sorry," said Iggy. The elder, called Cedric, was pointing at him. "Who is he?" "The boy, Cedric," whispered his neighbour. "Is it his birthday?" Borg silenced them with a furious look. He turned to Iggy. "Answer, boy. Does you deny trying to murder the chief?" "No, I mean, yes, it was an accident," stammered Iggy. Borg gave a dry laugh. "Ha! You expect us to believe that?" It's true. I thought the snake was dead." "Then why did you throw her at the chief?" "I wasn't aiming at him," said Iggy. I just got carried away. It was an accident." "So you keep saying," said Borg grimly. He turned to the circle of elders. "Does anyone here wish to speak for the boy?" Iggy waited hopefully. None of the elders spoke or got to their feet. Either they hadn't understood the question, or they were too frightened of Borg to say a word. Gaga the Wise had his eyes closed and his hands clasped in his lap. He looked like he'd nodded off to sleep. Iggy wondered where his mum and dad could be. "Then, shall us deal with the question of punishment?" said Borg, hurrying them on. Iggy thought he must have misheard. "But I haven't—" "Silence!" roared Borg. "But—" "Hold your tongue. For the last time, does anyone wish to question the boy?" A hand went up. It belonged to Cedric. "What is your favourite colour?" he asked. Iggy groaned. He'd get more sense from a mushroom. Borg had lost patience and was already moving on. "We has heard enough," he said. "I asked the elders to pass judgment. You saw it happen with your own eyes. Were this just an accident, or were it something else? A cold-blooded plot to murder our beloved chief?" "Who?" asked Cedric, cupping his ears. "The chief." "I thought he weren't coming." "He's not. He were bitten by a snake." "Great Urk. Has anyone told him?" "Will you shut up?" roared Borg, thudding his axe into the ground, which had the desired effect on getting everyone's attention. As I was saying, the law of the tribe is clear. If any Urk shall strike his chief, he must be cast out, banished once and for all." "Banished?" Iggy gasped. He had expected a severe telling off, but banished? How would he survive outside of the tribe, without food or shelter? Borg was passing among the elders, handing each of them a small grey pebble. He came to a halt in the middle of the circle and spoke in a loud, ringing voice. "Elders of Urk, give your judgment. If you find the boy guilty of murder, cast your stone into the circle." The wind had dropped. It had suddenly grown so quiet you could have heard a worm counting its legs, or a squirrel thinking of acorns, Anyway, it was very, very quiet. Iggy knew his fate rested on the elders and the 6 grey pebbles in their hands. If more than 3 stones were cast into the circle, he was doomed. Borg opened his hand. The first stone rolled in the dust. He glared impatiently at the other elders, and a second pebble thudded into the circle. "Wait!" Iggy looked up and saw Hubba pushing through the crowd. Behind him came Mum and Dad, looking anxious and out of breath. "For Urk's sake, stop this!" cried Dad. "The boy made a mistake. He meant no harm." "Too late," snapped Borg. "You are not part of this council. The elders has reached a judgment." "Not quite," said a voice. Every head turned to see who had spoken. It was Gagga the Wise, who was till now Iggy had assumed was asleep. "You speak of murder, Borg," he said. "But tell me, who is dead?" Borg scowled at him furiously. "You said yourself—" "I said the chief had a fever. He is sick, very sick, but the gods may grant he recovers. Surely that's what all of us hope." "Well, of course," stammered Borg, turning red for some reason. Gagga laced his pale fingers, resting them in his lap. He glanced at the dark clouds drifting across the sky. "Allow me to make a suggestion," he said. "In the farlands to the north grows a plant called the purple stankwort. Some of you may have heard of it." There was silence. "The plant's juice is a powerful medicine," Gagga continued. "I'm told it can cure almost anything, perhaps even snake bites." Borg folded his arms. "All well and good, but what dung fool would risk his neck going to the farlands?" Gagga smiled pleasantly. "Perhaps a fool who wishes to make amends." Iggy blinked. Why was everyone staring in his direction?